sitting here with Marc, a friend of mine and also the owner of Police Canine Consultants. Last week we had the opportunity to do some dog training in a U.S. Customs and Border Patrol Black Hawk helicopter. Marc had a couple of patrol dogs that he wanted to acclimate to the helicopter, and I'm going to turn it over to Marc now and let him explain what happened with his training and his methods that he used during the flight. Marc, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, so a little bit about my background. I started in law enforcement in 1986. I joined the Canine unit in 1992 at a department in South Florida. I retired from that unit in 2015. Immediately following, I went to U.S. Army Special Operations Command out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and worked with Special Operations dogs there as a technical trainer for 5 years. I completed that, came back down to Florida, where I'm concentrating on the business right now.
Very good. And last week, as I said before, I had the opportunity to be with you and go up in the Black Hawk helicopter. And I know that many trainers try to acclimate dogs to different environmental situations, and in this particular case, we were trying to acclimate them to a helicopter. So why don't you give us a little bit of insight what your plan was, how that went about, and the results of that last week.
So our focus was on two specific dogs that were going to need to be able to work out of the Black Hawk. So my methodology starts with those two dogs, and it's food based. So we actually had we were limited to 2 training sessions with the dogs. Normally I would take I could do it all in one day, but my time windows were a little short. So the first iteration were at the Air Force Base in Homestead, and my accessibility to the helicopter at that point was it was just there at the hangar, and I was able to get the dogs on and off of the helicopter without the rotors turning, and with just the APU turned on. So to back up a couple steps, the dogs were taken individually, not dually at first, to the helo. Handlers were told to approach the helicopter. Again, nothing was moving. Get on the helicopter, find their seating position that we anticipated they would be riding in, and just feed the dogs there. And it's a very low stress environment, very happy for the dogs. And so we did 2 or 3 iterations of that, where they would come on, and then they would come off the helicopter and then go back again. Once that was completed, I then took both dogs and put them both on at the same time to see how they would ride together simultaneously. Didn't see any issues there. From there, then we turned on the APU. So the APU... Can
you explain the APU?
Sure. The APU is Auxiliary Power Unit, I believe it stands for on the helicopter, and that's usually when you hear everything starting up there, all the systems come online, and there's a very high whine on the helicopter. Just as it's getting all the systems going. So that whine sometimes can freak a dog out, just because it's a different noise. There's no vibration or anything to it. It's a very loud noise. So once we had the dogs on simultaneously, I went back to just single load with the dogs to where APU was turned on, and we were back into the same positions where we were feeding the dogs on the helicopter. Again, from there, took the dogs on simultaneously, again with the APU turned on, open and close the doors, make sure everything spatially was good with the dogs, they weren't getting claustrophobic, the confinement was not causing any stress. So from there, that session was done, my time frame was over with, and then we showed up to the session where you were able to get some filming done. And that would pick up where we actually picked up where we left off. We got onto a quiet bird. Then we worked into the APU again, open and closing the doors, make sure spatially everything was there, and then we actually added a couple more bodies inside the helo compartment with the dogs. Once those iterations were over with, we took the dogs back out, and we got the rotor start turning. I've run into some problems in my experience where once the rotors start to turn visually for the dogs, sometimes that can send them into an avoidance just because it's not something that they're used to environmentally. I've actually watched a couple dogs actually try to jump up and try to grab a rotor that was spinning slowly. So all things that we want to acclimate the dog to and make sure that we're not going to run into a problem. Once those runs went well, again, everything was within food. We got the dogs used to the muzzle on the helo. just because on first flights, never know how the dog's going to react. We want safety for the crew and for anybody else that's riding with, as well as the handler and any other dogs, so we would go in our muzzle. Dogs seem to work through that very well, and then we actually got into flight time with the dogs. So they went up. Again, for the law enforcement purposes, operationally, how often will they actually need it? Probably very rarely, but the first time you don't want to take a dog up on a helo is not an operational flight. We want to have the training that leads up to it and get the dogs acclimated to it, so we know how the dogs are going to react. We took very short flights. We did a couple elevators, which is just up and down. Once that went well, we took a couple racetracks around the location we were at and got the dogs used to flying and the vibration, the noise, the pitch of the aircraft and whatnot, and everything seemed to go very well. We didn't have any issues.
Well, we do have on video when one of the dog teams were departing from the helicopter. One of the dogs showed some avoidance as he was getting out. Could have been the velocity of the wind, it could have been the noise, whatever. But what would you do in that case? And I think you saw the video. What would you do in that case to try to have him overcome that?
Yeah, so a lot of times the rotor wash becomes a big impediment to a dog, whether it's loading or unloading. Most of the time it's loading, because as they're going away from the helo, we don't have that stress of wanting to get a dog onto a small compartment. As they're going off, usually it's less of an issue. But coming in through the rotor wash, once the helo is started up and they're coming through it, is where I'd usually see the dog jam on the brakes. So at some point, you can try to lure the dog through it. But if this is a mission necessity, there are times that the dog is just going to have to do it. And once they get through that rotor wash and they see that there's calm on the other end of the storm, normally it's able to work itself out. But in my time working with some military dogs, we did have a couple that could not get past that issue. So it was either we chose that dog would be carried through it, or the dog was fired and was expunged from the program.
Second question, you use food as a primary reward system for the dogs. Why did you do that, and do you ever change up to another type of reward, such as a toy?
Yeah, so most of the time it's dog dependent, just like anything else. Some dogs are not food driven. If I can work a dog in food drive, it's much better. Whether it's gunfire or whether it's helo training, food has a calming effect as opposed to a ball. So the ball tends to ramp the dogs up, plus the handler has to get the toy back from the dog again. You get more repetitions from food than you can possibly get from a ball. But there are occasions where we've had to employ the toy. But the reason for the food is it does provide a calming effect and gets the dog to focus in one spot, as opposed to toy comes out, he's chasing it, goes around. I don't want a dog trying to chase a toy while he's in the helicopter, whether it's moving or whether it's not moving. Yeah. Too many moving parts.
Very good. Well, we're going to show the viewers some video. Great. And great talking with you.
All right. Once you get settled, set them down, a couple of pieces of food, back out again. We'll get a couple reps in each dog. As long as we don't have a problem, everything gets spinning, we'll do well. Don't let them lick it, all right? Hop in, turn around, flip in. Now remember, we're not going to be in this position now. Okay. It's got to be pushed back. Doors are going to be closed. So flip in. Oh. Good your legs. Start getting some food. It's like me, still food motivated. Put Right on the deck, John.
I ride already.
I'm gonna climb in. If you don't mind closing the door real quick. Give me an alley. He's gonna come out and come back in again. Yep. It's about 25 yards to come back, John. John, how old is he now? 4. Push back. Legs in. Alright. Good. Good. I'm going to push him against the wall. Would you rather be more comfortable here?
Yeah.
Alright. Steve, push over here.
It's easier that way.
Yeah. Alright, come in, make that swing and get him between the wall. Pinch him there. Put your lanyard in. That side. Find one over there. Pull your feet in. Fritz, will you close that door? So, thank you. Down. Hey, in. You clip in this way. All the way in. Guys, push back here. Right on the deck. Flat. Flat. Excellent. Start calming down. Here. Flat. We have your leash. Flat. Come on, dog. Off. Off. Flat. Feet right here between the paws. Flat. Alright, so when you come in, is that how you're planning on flying? Your positioning?
Whatever.
Alright, so whether it's on your knees or whatnot, get a position. more seconds, take them off. Go out and come back again, okay? Good. You got that avoidance there coming off? Quick, John! Come in quick! Good. So when he's coming off, watch him. You saw the avoidance when he came off from that thing? So I want you to go this way a little bit more, all right? Ready? Go ahead, leave.